Hi everyone, this is Sherry from Furen University Self-Learning Courses. Very happy to be here again, and this time we will be interviewing with Tom, who is an urban planner and has worked in the transportation field in the last 15 years. He has worked both in Canada and the United States, and so we're very happy to have him share a little bit about the similarities and the differences working in this field in these two countries. He has also been a manager for the last 7 years, and so can also share a little bit of the tips on what he finds to be a good employee, for example. So stay tuned. Ding! Hi Tom, welcome. Thank you so much for being part of this interview and for sharing your tips on what it's like to work in North America for students in Furen University. So just to begin with, your background is you have studied geography and urban planning and then focusing on bicycle planning both in Canada and the United States. How would you describe are some of the fun and the challenging things working in this field?
Well, I'd say it's fun because you are city shaping, and I'm reshaping the city, the built environment, to be something that's less auto-centric, so less dependable on automobiles and more friendly to people walking and biking. So that's both a challenge and it's a lot of fun. Fun when you succeed, of course. There's a lot of battles that you don't always win because they're too controversial, but nevertheless, most of the ones that I've tried, I usually end up getting some sort of change to the road, and that's fun to see.
So it's when, as you go through the challenges, when you can navigate through and successfully implement the plans that you envision and make positive changes for people, that's when you're able to really embrace the dream of your job in a way.
Yeah, and in North America, a lot depends on how engagement goes, how the conversation goes with the public. Very rarely does a project just get put in. You have to do a lot of talking with the communities first. And so it becomes kind of a challenge and an art to survive that process and to get people to see the benefits of your project and to support it. Because if they don't support it, then your project probably dies out.
So just to help our students understand, when you use the word engagement, does that mean it's, especially when you were working in the government, then you have to have a lot of meetings, conversations, as you were saying, so that the public of each neighborhood that you work in or each city that you work in, they understand what it is that you're trying to do and what would be the benefits for them?
Yeah, it's that whole process of explaining the project to the public and reaching out to anybody who might be impacted by the project, such as a business along the corridor, a homeowner, somebody living there, or maybe even the bus drivers that have to come down the corridor, and how will the changes impact them. So it's kind of reaching out to everybody who might be using the roadway and talking to them to improve what you're trying to do, not just tell them that you're doing it.
Yeah, so it sounds like in your role, you not only have to understand what you're planning the city for, you have to be very good at communicating your vision and ideas to the public so they also understand this is eventually good for them. Early on too, you were talking about there's a lot of battles or challenges. Could you share with one of those, how do you address those challenges and why would there be concerns in this case?
Well, I can recall a project in Calgary, Alberta, maybe 5 years ago, where we had plans going back maybe 20 years to install some bike lanes on a roadway. And this roadway was pretty well traveled by a lot of people in the community. And they were used to the same design of the road for the past 40 years, 50 years, as far as they could remember. And so when we brought forward this really superior design, it was alien to them. So it took quite a few meetings of going out there and explaining the project before they actually warmed up to the idea of it going in. And sometimes that's what you just have to do for the project. You have to be nimble and be flexible and adapt to the changing environment. And being adaptable is a great way of survival in the North America, as well as being able to actually succeed. If you're too rigid and stuck in your ways and not see the bigger picture, it could lead to not succeeding.
So, Tom, just now you were sharing about how being adaptable and being able to move forward with the times is key to success in both Canada and the United States. Can you elaborate on what that means? Do you have examples, please?
So I've been a manager for, as you said, about seven years, and I've hired a few people. I've also had employees that I've inherited that have just been on the team, and I get to know them and become their supervisor and their leader. So one of the things I look for when hiring employees is people that are adaptable. And I found that over the years that it's really nice to have employees that can change on the fly, that can be able to do almost any duty that's needed, that they can see why they're being asked to do that, and just really dive in and be proactive about it. It shouldn't take a long explanation to get somebody motivated. I've had employees that want to resist and question, and it becomes really a delay on the whole project if I have to explain things multiple times. So the employees that can just pick it up and see what's needed and be proactive and accomplish what's needed to do is the best employee.
Thank you for the share. So somebody, because in the workplace these days, you're faced with a lot of changes, whether it's the people you work with, maybe it's a different government, maybe just the fact that the team changes, right? Or the nature of work changes. So then if you're able to be flexible in whoever you work with and how you approach things, then chances for success are much better. And so that's what you value in an employee, being flexible and adaptable.
Yeah, I think exactly. And those type of employees can be rare, but at least in my field, transportation planning, it is a mix of being able to talk to people, to come up with plans to improve communities. So we're part technical and how cities operate and how they can be better, but we're also have to deal with the art of dealing with people and that communication. So that's a field where you really need to be adaptable, and you don't want to be too much of just one specialty.
So when you use the word technical, let me see if I understand. That means you have the knowledge to carry out the projects you're asked for, and in this case, very specifically around transportation planning. But you not only want to have that, you also want to balance it out with what many people call soft skills. How do you communicate with the public, deliver your messages? How do you work with people from most likely very, very many different backgrounds, right? Culturally, maybe just from different fields sometimes.
It's about having social skills, be able to talk to anybody, whether that's somebody on the street who might be impacted, or also your coworkers, or somebody who is the technical specialist. For example, myself, for example, I've had to be able to have conversations with traffic engineers. They're very specialized in moving traffic and understanding how roadway design works. So I need to be able to talk to them and be able to talk to the guy who maybe owns the store on the street. And they're really just completely different people. But in me being adaptable to the conversation, I'm able to go between different users, and as long as you're clear and use clear communication on both, you can do well.
Again, just double checking for students' understanding, when you are talking with traffic engineers, they are very smart about how to move the cars, but perhaps sometimes they're not able to see a bigger picture on how just moving the cars might negatively impact the businesses or the pedestrians or the cyclists. And then on the other hand, you are talking with the business owners on the sidewalk, and so you want to also balance what might be their needs so that you can fit in the whole picture as you're designing this, right?
My experience in that area, being able to communicate effectively with different parties, I think that's true in probably almost any field. And so don't think that you're above someone else just because maybe they don't have the same education as you. Talk to them on the same level as you would talk to somebody who's a highly educated, well-respected person from education field, for example.